Welcome, guys, to the Devoted Christian. I thank you all for coming and listening to this. And my name is Josh, and I hope that what the Lord has laid upon my heart speaks to you today. Today, I'm going to be talking about how much does God give us, and what God gives us, is it too much for us to handle? Oftentimes we read posts and we see pastors and we see people sharing pictures of these graphic, pictures that say, God doesn't give us too much we can't handle, and just put your faith. If you don't have faith, then that's whenever your life falls apart. And I'm here to tell you that that's a lie. God, many times in our Christian walk, gives us too much that we can't handle. And I'm just going to summarize the story of Job. I am going to read Job chapter 1 this morning or this afternoon or tonight, whichever time that you're listening to this. And I'm going to talk about the first 10 verses of Job, and then I'm going to close at the end and kind of explain what's going on in Job's life. There is a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him seven sons and 3 daughters. His sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And when the days of the feast had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them. And he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did continually. Okay, so we have this man who is faithful to God. He loves the Lord. God has blessed him abundantly. I mean, this man had it made. He had 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, 7 sons, 3 daughters. Many people probably knew him. He probably had many friends. He was married. I'm sure his wife was beautiful. He's probably a handsome man. And so God blessed this man. He loved the Lord. He would make sacrifices for his children. And so he was dedicated to God, and he knew how severe a sinful or ungodly lifestyle was. Okay, so let's fast forward to we don't know when this is, but it happens. Verse 6 of chapter 1. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came along them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." And the Lord said to Satan, "You have considered my servant Job. There is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil." Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job not fear for no reason, God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house, all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has. He will curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. So we have this conversation between Satan and God. And Satan is saying to God, he's saying, "God, I've gone across the entire earth. I've walked up and down, left and right, and I haven't found anybody that is worthy of me to tempt." And God just thinks highly of Job, and he says, "What about my servant Job?" So we obviously know that the Lord loves Job, and the Lord knows Job's heart. And so we should strive to be like Job. We should ultimately strive to be like Christ. But I think if we're going to talk about men of God, we should talk about Job. And so we should be like Job. We should be this person that God's willing to put us up on the pedestal and say, tempt this person. I want you to do it to this person. And so right here, we have the unfolding of God giving Satan permission to give Job too much he can't handle. One night, I had a dream. I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to my Lord. When the last scene of my life shot before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. There was only one set of footprints. I realized that this was at the lowest and saddest times of my life. This always bothered me, and I questioned the Lord about my dilemma. Lord, you told me when I decided to follow you, you would walk and talk with me all the way. But I'm aware that during the most troublesome times of my life, there is only one set of footprints. I just don't understand why. When I need you most, you leave me. He whispered, "My precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never, ever. During your trials and testings, when you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you." So oftentimes we think God's left us. We go through these times in our Christian walk that we think, it's so hard, but if God truly didn't give us too much we can't handle, why do we go through times like that? And I think it's so God can have us rely on Him again. Because oftentimes we stop relying on the Lord, and we have this chaos that starts to come in our lives. And because this chaos happens in our lives, we don't know what to do. And so in the book of Job, Job does this. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know where, he talks to God consistently, but he just does not know what to do. And it's because Satan has destroyed everything that he's had. He's destroyed his family. He's destroyed his marriage. He's destroyed his friendships. He's destroyed his cattle, his camels, his sheep, his donkeys, everything. This man has nothing but the Lord. And Job starts to question God. And we've all questioned God. It's okay to question God. Job is angry. It's okay to be angry with God. We learn that from Job. Job does not curse God, though. He doesn't turn his back on God, but he questions him. And God answers Job, and he tells Job, where were you when I created the universe? That ox that you ate this morning, I created it. Where were you? And it kind of puts Job back into his place. And Job starts to realize that he's in an argument with the all-powerful God of his life. And he realizes that he needs to put God back in control. So at the very end of Job, chapter 42, he confesses his sins, and he says, God, you're the person that I'm to get counsel from, to get wisdom from. I've uttered what I did not understand. I didn't understand what I said. That's in verse 3. Things too wonderful for me, which I don't know. And he says in verse 2, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. So Job is opening his heart back up to God, and he's allowing God to take the reins back over his life, to steer him back on the right path. That's just awesome that God does that. And so then God seeks justice for Job. God is a just God, and he will seek justice for you. He basically puts Job's enemies in Job's own hands, and he says to him, my anger burns against you. This is verse 7 if you want to look it up. your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, and as my servant has, Job has. Now therefore take 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job, and offer up a burnt offering for yourselves, and my servant Job shall pray for you. For I will accept his prayer, not to deal with you according to your folly. For you have not spoken of me what is right, and my servant Job has. And so he's telling them, go to Job. He's going to pray for you whenever you go to him. So he's making them humble themselves and go to Job after what they did to him. And this is the awesome part. You see, we go through too many things. We have life just piles up. We have 3 family members that died, and our bills are stacking up because we keep having to go to these funerals of our family members who we're going to miss. And, because we work and we don't have sick time, or we work part-time jobs and we don't have sick time and things like that, bills start to pile up and pile up and pile up. And before you know it, your marriage is in crumbles because you're arguing with your spouse about the bills, and your children are getting on your nerves because you've lost your sense of patience, because you're not patient with anything anymore. And we get our patience from God. We get we learn how to love through God. And because of that, God carries us. It's almost like we're on autopilot. We just kind of go through the motions, and then somehow, some way, we have a revival in our heart, and God sparks a revival, and that revival begins to set forth, and we see that God actually carried us through those moments. I was reading John 15 this morning, and Jesus prunes, and he takes the old bad branches off of us, and he prunes the old fruit and takes it off of us, and so new fruit can grow. And so sometimes I like to call those pruning stages in our life, because as a Christian, you're going to go through pruning stages. It's going to be hard. Being a Christian is one of the hardest things that you can choose to do. And so I'm going to leave that with you. And I just want you to know, God gives you too much that you can't handle. It's up to you whether you're going to trust with God, and you're going to continue to do what you need to do in your Christian walk, which is pray and read your Bible and fast and do these things that show God that you're still a servant like Job is, and talk with him constantly. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope that it uplifted your spirits, and I hope that you learned something new today. If you have any questions, post them in the comments below. Subscribe over here, or over there, right there. Over there. Should be a subscribe button somewhere down there. Subscribe to the channel, and if you have any prayer requests, send them on by, because I will pray for you. I'm not just gonna not pray for you and say I'm gonna pray for you, and I've done that before, and I think that just lets you know who I am. And so I hope you all have a blessed day, and I hope that you stay focused and finish and fight the good fight. Have a good day, guys. This is the Devoted Christians signing off.